The stars were cold and distant when Park Do-hyun realized he was going to die. His cargo ship, the Silver Dream, drifted through the blackness of space like a broken toy. The engine had failed 3 hours ago. The backup systems had followed soon after. Now he sat in the pilot seat of a dead vessel, watching the oxygen meter slowly count down to 0. Do-hyun was 26 years old. He had been a freighter pilot for only 2 years. This was supposed to be a simple job. Carry mining equipment from Earth to a colony world. Pick up rare metals. Return home. Easy money, they had told him. Safe route, they had promised. They were wrong. A micrometeorite had struck his engine compartment somewhere in the dark space between stars. The damage was too severe for him to repair alone. His distress signal had been broadcasting for hours. But no one answered. He was too far from human space, too far from anyone who cared. Do-hyun looked at the picture taped to his control panel. His mother and father smiled back at him from the photograph. They did not know their son was dying. They would not know for weeks, maybe months. By then, his body would be frozen solid, drifting forever through the endless void. He closed his eyes and tried to accept his fate. Then his communication system crackled to life. The voice that came through was strange. It clicked and whistled in ways that human voices could not. But the translator built into his ship's computer converted the sounds into words he could understand. Unknown vessel. This is the Velith medical frigate Whisper of Dawn. We have received your distress signal. Do you require assistance? Do-hyun's hands shook as he grabbed the microphone. Yes, I need help. My engine is destroyed. I have maybe 4 hours of oxygen left. Please. Can you help me? There was a long pause. Do-hyun's heart pounded in his chest. He knew about the Velith. Everyone in the galaxy knew about them. They were an ancient species, older than humanity by thousands of years. They looked like giant insects with crystalline shells that glowed with soft light. They were peaceful. They kept to themselves. They had no treaties with Earth. No agreements. No obligations. They had no reason to help him. Human vessel, the voice finally said. We are diverting to your location. Hold on. Do-hyun wept with relief. The Whisper of Dawn arrived 2 hours later. It was the most beautiful ship Do-hyun had ever seen. The hull was made of living crystal that pulsed with gentle blue light. It moved through space like a dream, graceful and silent. A docking tube extended from the Velith ship and connected to his airlock. When the door opened, Do-hyun found himself face to face with a creature from another world. She was tall, nearly 7 feet, with 6 limbs and a body covered in pale crystal plates. Her eyes were large and dark, like pools of black water, wings folded against her back, delicate and thin as paper. She was terrifying and beautiful at the same time. I am Elder Morath, she said through a translator device hung around her neck. Her voice was soft and kind. You are safe now. Young one, Do-hyun tried to speak, but no words came out. He simply nodded and followed her into the Velith ship. The next 3 days changed his life forever. The Velith crew worked without rest to repair his vessel. They were not engineers. They were medical personnel, trained to heal bodies, not machines. But they learned. They studied his ship's systems, asked him questions, and figured out how to fix what was broken. Elder Morath stayed with him through it all. She brought him food from their own supplies, strange things that tasted like honey and flowers. She sat with him when he could not sleep. She listened when he talked about his home, his family, his dreams. Why are you doing this? Do-hyun asked her on the second night. You don't know me. Your people have no agreement with mine. You're using your own fuel, your own food, your own time. Why? Morath tilted her head in a way that he had learned meant she was thinking. Her wings rustled softly behind her. Many years ago, she said, when my people were young, we were lost in space. Alone. Afraid. A species we had never met found us. They helped us. They asked for nothing. They simply helped because we needed help. She reached out and touched his hand with one of her delicate limbs. Her touch was cool and smooth, like touching glass. That species is gone now. They died out long ago, forgotten by the universe. But we remember them. We remember what they taught us. Kindness needs no treaty, young one. Kindness is its own reason. Do-hyun felt tears running down his face. He did not try to stop them. On the third day, his ship was repaired. The Velith had given him enough fuel to reach the nearest human station. They had filled his cargo hold with food and water. They had done everything possible to ensure he would survive. As Do-hyun prepared to leave, he stood before Elder Morath in the docking bay. He did not know what to say. How could words ever be enough? "I will never forget this," he said. "I will never forget you. I will tell everyone about what you did. And if you ever need anything at all, call for Earth. Call for me. I will come." Morath made a sound that his translator interpreted as laughter. "You are one small human. What could you do?" "Really, I don't know," Do-hyun admitted. "But I would try. I would die trying." The elder studied him for a long moment. Something changed in her dark eyes. Something like respect. Something like love. "I believe you would," she said softly. "Go home, Park Do-hyun. Live well. Be kind to others as we have been kind to you. That is all the payment we need." Do-hyun bowed deeply, a gesture of respect from his culture. Then he boarded his ship and flew away into the stars. He kept his promise. When he returned to Earth, he told everyone who would listen about the Velith who saved him. He filed official reports. He gave interviews. He made sure the story was recorded in Terran databases where it would never be lost. He married a woman named Kim Ji-yeon, and they had a daughter. They named her Sujin, which meant precious truth. When Sujin was old enough to understand, Do-hyun told her the story of Elder Morath and the Whisper of Dawn. "Remember this," he told his daughter. "There are good people in the universe. Good beings who help others, not because they have to, but because it is right. If you ever have the chance to repay that kindness, take it, no matter the cost." Sujin listened with wide eyes. She never forgot her father's words. Do-hyun lived a full and happy life. He became a respected captain, then retired to teach young pilots. He never saw Elder Morath again, but he thought of her often. He wondered if she was still alive, still sailing through the stars in her beautiful crystal ship. He died peacefully at the age of 71, surrounded by his family. His last words were spoken to his daughter Sujin, who held his hand as he passed. "Remember the Velith," he whispered. "Remember kindness." And she did. 44 years passed like water through open fingers. Elder Morath stood at the great window of the Crystal Palace on Velisar, watching her world burn. Smoke rose from the cities below. Ships fell from the sky like dying birds. The screams of her people echoed through the communication channels, mixing with the thunder of explosions. The Keth had come. Morath was old now, older than any Velith had a right to be. Her crystal shell had grown dull with age. Her wings could no longer carry her. She needed a staff to walk, but her mind was still sharp, and her heart still beat strong in her chest. She had led her people through peace for more than a century. She had watched them build beautiful cities of crystal and light. She had seen them create art and music that made other species weep with joy. She had believed, foolishly perhaps, that the universe would leave them alone. She was wrong. The Keth Dominion had appeared at the edge of Velith space 3 months ago. They were a warrior race, tall and powerful, with gray skin and 4 arms. They lived for conquest. They existed only to take what others had built, and they wanted Velisar. The Velith homeworld sat on the largest deposit of quantum crystals in the known galaxy. These crystals powered advanced technology, made faster than light travel possible, and were worth more than entire star systems. The Keth wanted them. The Keth did not ask. The Keth simply took. The first Velith colony fell in 3 days. The second fell in 2. The third tried to surrender, and the Keth killed everyone anyway. They did not want peace. They wanted fear. Now, their fleet surrounded Velisar itself. 800 warships hung in orbit like vultures waiting for their prey to die. The Velith had no military. They had no weapons. They had only their beautiful crystalline ships, designed for exploration and healing, not war. Morath's advisor, a young male named Tilak, rushed into the room. His crystal shell was cracked from a recent explosion. Green blood seeped from the wound. "Elder, you must come to the shelter," he said. "The Keth are preparing their final attack. They will bombard the surface within hours." "I know," Morath said quietly. She did not turn from the window. "How many ships do we have left?" 12. Medical frigates and transport vessels. Nothing that can fight. "And our people?" Tilak's voice broke. 3 billion remain on the surface. Another 200 million in orbit. On refugee ships. They have nowhere to go. The Keth have blocked all escape routes. Morath closed her eyes. 3 billion souls. Mothers and children, artists and healers, teachers and students. All of them would die because she had believed in peace. "The Keth commander is demanding our surrender," Tilak continued. "He says if we give up, he will spare the population. They will become slaves of the Dominion. Our culture will be erased. Our children will be taken. But we will live. Do you believe him?" Tilak was silent for a long moment. "No. I watched what they did to Colony 3. They promised mercy there, too." Morath nodded slowly. She had seen the recordings. The Keth did not understand mercy. They only understood strength. If the Velith surrendered, they would still die. They would simply die on their knees instead of their feet. "Then we will not surrender," she said. "Elder, we will be destroyed, perhaps. But we will be destroyed with our dignity intact." Tilak made a sound of despair. His wings sagged against his back. "Is there no hope at all? No one who might help us?" Morath did not answer immediately. She stared out at the burning sky and remembered a young human pilot. Decades ago, floating alone in the dark between stars. She remembered his tears of gratitude. She remembered his promise. "If you ever need anything, anything at all, call for Earth. Earth." The humans. She had not thought of them in years. They were so far away, on the other side of the galaxy. They had their own problems, their own wars, their own concerns. They had no treaty with the Velith, no obligation, no reason to risk their lives for strangers. But that young pilot had made a promise. And Morath had seen something in his eyes that day. Something fierce and true. Humans were strange creatures. They were short-lived and fragile. Yet they fought with a passion that confused older species. They remembered things. They kept promises that others would forget. At least, some of them did. "There is one chance," Morath said softly. "A small one. Probably impossible." "Anything," Tilak begged. "Please, Elder, try anything." Morath turned from the window and walked slowly to her communication terminal. Her old hands trembled as she activated the system and entered a frequency that had been stored in her memory for 44 years. A frequency that a grateful young human had given her before he flew away into the stars. She did not know if anyone was still listening. She did not know if the signal could even reach human space. She only knew that she had to try. "This is Elder Morath of the Velith Sovereignty," she said into the recorder. Her voice was steady despite her fear. "I am sending this message to Earth. To any human who can hear me." She paused, gathering her thoughts. 44 years ago, I commanded a medical frigate called the Whisper of Dawn. We found a human vessel, dead in space, with a pilot named Park Do-hyun dying inside. We saved him. We repaired his ship. We sent him home. We asked for nothing in return. Tears began to form in her dark eyes. "Now my people are dying. The Keth Dominion has invaded our space. They have destroyed our colonies. They surround our homeworld with 800 warships. We have no military. We have no weapons. We cannot fight. Within hours, 3 billion of my people will be killed or enslaved." She took a deep breath. I am not calling to demand payment. I am not calling because you owe us anything. I am calling because a young human once told me that if we ever needed help, we should call for Earth. He promised he would come. Her voice broke slightly. Park Do-hyun is probably dead now. Humans do not live as long as we do. But perhaps someone remembers him. Perhaps someone remembers us. I do not know if this message will reach you. I do not know if you will care. But I have no other hope. She straightened her spine, lifting her head with what remained of her dignity. This is Elder Morath of the Velith Sovereignty. We once helped a human who asked for nothing. Now we are asking, does Earth remember? Does anyone remember? She ended the recording and sent it into the void of space. The signal would take hours to reach human territory, if it reached them at all. By then, her world might already be ash. Tilak stood beside her, his young face filled with confusion. The humans? Elder? They are so far away. And they have no reason to help us. No, Morath agreed. They have no reason at all. Then why? Morath thought of Park Do-hyun's face, wet with tears, as he promised to repay a kindness that required no payment. She thought of the fire in his eyes, the fierce gratitude that seemed too large for his small body. Because humans are strange creatures, she said. They remember things that others forget. They make promises that they keep for generations. And sometimes, just sometimes, they do impossible things, simply because someone believed they would. She looked up at the sky, where Keth warships waited to destroy her world. Perhaps I am a fool. Perhaps I am reaching for hope that does not exist. But if we are going to die, I would rather die hoping than surrender. I would rather believe in the kindness of strangers than give up everything we are. Tilak stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. Then we will hope together, Elder. Until the very end. Morath smiled sadly and touched his cheek with her old, trembling hand. Until the very end, she agreed. And somewhere, racing across the vast emptiness of space, her message flew toward Earth, carrying with it the last hope of a dying world. Admiral Yoon Hayon was tired. She sat in her office aboard Seoul Orbital Station, surrounded by reports and problems that never seemed to end. The Terran United Fleet was stretched thin across 100 systems. Pirates attacked shipping lanes, border disputes flared with neighboring powers. Politicians demanded results while cutting budgets. She was 62 years old and had served in the fleet for 40 years. She had seen wars and peace, victory and defeat. She had buried friends and made enemies. Some days, she wondered why she bothered getting out of bed. This was one of those days. Her desk terminal beeped with an incoming priority message. She sighed and activated it, expecting another bureaucratic problem from Earth Command. Instead, she found herself listening to an alien voice, old and trembling, speaking words that made her blood run cold. This is Elder Morath of the Velith Sovereignty. Hayon listened to the entire message without moving. When it ended, she played it again. Then a third time. Her hands were shaking by the time she finished. She knew about the Velith. Everyone in the fleet knew about them. Ancient and peaceful, they kept to themselves on the far side of the galaxy. No treaties, no conflicts, no connections to Earth. But she also knew about Park Do-hyun. Hayon opened her computer and searched the fleet archives. The file was old, nearly half a century buried in dusty databases that nobody ever read. But it was there. A report from a young freighter pilot, describing how he had been saved by aliens who asked for nothing in return. The pilot's daughter was listed in the file as his emergency contact, Park Soo-jin. Hayon checked the fleet roster. Her heart skipped a beat. Captain Park Soo-jin commanded the destroyer Swift Justice, currently stationed in the Second Fleet. She had served with distinction for 20 years. She was one of the best officers in the entire Terran military, and she had no idea that the aliens who saved her father were dying. Hayon made a decision. She activated her communication system and called an emergency meeting of all available senior officers. Within an hour, 30 admirals and captains gathered in the station's main conference room, their faces confused and concerned. "Thank you for coming," Heian said. She stood at the head of the long table, her back straight despite her exhaustion. I have received a message that I believe requires our immediate attention. She played Elder Morath's recording for the assembled officers. When it ended, the room was silent. Admiral Baek Junwoo was the first to speak. He was a large man with a reputation for practical thinking. The Velith? I've never even met one. We have no treaty with them. No strategic interest in their space. The Keth outnumber any force we could send by at least 3 to 1. That's correct, Heian agreed. Then, why are we here? Another officer asked. What do you expect us to do? Heian took a deep breath. 44 years ago, a Velith ship found a human pilot dying in space. They had no treaty with us. No obligation. No reason to help. But they saved him anyway. They repaired his ship, gave him food and fuel, and sent him home. They asked for nothing. She looked around the room, meeting each pair of eyes in turn. That pilot was Park Do-hyun. He spent the rest of his life telling everyone about the Velith who saved him. He made a promise that if they ever needed help, humans would come. He died 5 years ago, but his daughter serves in our fleet. Captain Park Soo-jin. The room stirred. Several officers exchanged glances. Now the Velith are dying, Heian continued. 800 Keth warships surround their homeworld. 3 billion people will be killed or enslaved within hours. And Elder Morath, the same alien who saved Do-hyun's life, is asking if anyone remembers. Admiral Baek shook his head. This is madness. We cannot start a war with the Keth over one old favor. The losses would be catastrophic. End quote. I'm not ordering anyone to go, Heian said quietly. This is not an official operation. Earth Command would never approve it. If we do this, we do it on our own. As volunteers for suicide, someone muttered. A chair scraped against the floor as someone stood. Heian turned to see Captain Kang Minho, a young destroyer commander with fire in his eyes. I'll go, he said. The room fell silent. Captain Kang. Admiral Baek began. Think carefully about. I have thought. Minho interrupted. I heard that message. I heard an old woman, far from home, asking if anyone remembered a kindness she showed 44 years ago. I heard her asking for help while surrounded by enemies who want to destroy her people. He looked around the room. What kind of humans are we if we don't answer that call? Another officer stood. Captain Cho Eun-ji, commander of the cruiser Dawn's Light. My ship is ready. I'll follow Captain Kang. Then another. And another. One by one, officers rose from their seats. Some were young, eager for glory. Others were old veterans, who understood what they were volunteering for. But they all stood. Heian felt tears forming in her eyes. She blinked them away. Those of you who wish to go, return to your ships and prepare for departure. We will rendezvous at the edge of Sector 7 in 6 hours. The meeting broke up. Officers rushed to their vessels, calling their crews, preparing for the impossible mission ahead. Word spread through the station like fire. Then it spread beyond, to other stations, other ships, other worlds. Within hours, messages began arriving at Seoul Station. Captains from across Terran space, hearing about the Velith and their desperate call, volunteered their ships. Merchants offered their freighters, retrofitted with whatever weapons they could find. Retired veterans demanded to be reinstated. Cadets begged to be assigned to any ship heading into battle. Heian had expected maybe 50 vessels. By the time the rendezvous came, 412 ships had answered the call. But there was one more ship that Heian needed. She found Captain Park Soo-jin aboard the Swift Justice, preparing her crew for departure. Soo-jin was a small woman with her father's eyes and her mother's determination. She had been only a child when Do-hyun told her about the Velith. Now she was one of the finest officers in the fleet. Admiral, Soo-jin said, saluting as Heian stepped aboard her ship. I assume you're here about the mission. I wanted to tell you personally, Heian said. The Velith who sent that message, Elder Morath, she's the one who saved your father's life. Without her, you would never have been born. Sujin was quiet for a long moment. Her hands tightened into fists at her sides. "I know," she said softly. "My father talked about her constantly. He named me after the dawn. Because of her ship. The Whisper of Dawn." She looked up at Heian with fierce determination. "I've been waiting my whole life for this moment. I just didn't know it until now." Heian nodded. "I want you to lead the fleet, Captain. Not because of your skills, though those are considerable, but because this mission is about more than strategy. It's about keeping a promise, and no one has more right to keep that promise than you." Sujin's eyes glistened. "I won't let you down, Admiral. I won't let my father down." 2. As the massive human fleet gathered at the edge of known space, Heian sent one final message toward the Velith homeworld. It was short, simple, and carried the weight of 400 ships and a species that never forgot its debts. "Earth remembers. We are coming." Somewhere in the darkness between stars, Elder Morath received that message. She read it once, then again, and then she fell to her knees and wept. Hope had answered. Humanity was coming. Warlord Therek stood on the bridge of his command ship, the Iron Fist, and smiled at the burning world below. Velisar was beautiful, he had to admit. The Velith had built their cities like jewels, shining crystals that caught the light of their sun and scattered rainbows across the land. Therek had never seen anything so pretty. He could not wait to destroy it. "All ships report ready," his second-in-command announced. "We can begin the final bombardment on your order." Therek stroked his chin with one of his forearms. 800 Keth warships surrounded the Velith homeworld. 12 pathetic crystalline vessels were all that stood between him and total victory. The Velith had no weapons, no warriors, no will to fight. This would not be a battle. It would be an execution. "Open a channel to the surface," Therek ordered. "I want to give them one last chance to beg." The view screen flickered, and Elder Morath's face appeared. She looked old and tired, but there was something in her eyes that Therek did not like. Something that looked almost like hope. "Velith Elder," Therek said, "this is your final warning. Surrender now, and some of your people may survive as slaves of the Dominion. Refuse, and I will turn your world to ash. You have 5 minutes to decide." Morath tilted her head. "And if we surrender? You will spare the children?" Some of them, the useful ones." "You lie," Therek laughed. "Perhaps. But what choice do you have? You are alone. No one is coming to save you. No one cares about your pathetic species. You will die here. Forgotten by the galaxy." Morath smiled. It was a strange smile, full of secrets. "We are not alone, Warlord." "What?" "Check your sensors." Therek felt a cold spike of fear in his stomach. He turned to his sensor officer. "Report." The officer's face had gone pale. "Sir? We're detecting hyperspace distortions at the edge of the system. Massive ones. Something is coming." "How many ships?" I can't tell. The readings are off the charts." The view screen flickered again, switching from Morath's face to a tactical display of the system. Therek watched in disbelief as space itself began to tear open. One ship burst through into real space. Then 10. Then 50. Then 100. Human vessels, their hulls scarred from hard burns across half the galaxy. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, and freighters bristling with weapons. They poured through the ruptures like water from a broken dam. 200 ships. 300. 400. And still they came. "What is this?" Therek whispered. "Where did they come from?" His sensor officer was shaking. "They're human ships, sir. Terran United Fleet signatures. And civilian vessels. Merchant ships. Private military contractors. They all have weapons." A new voice crackled over the communication channel. It was female, young, and absolutely cold. "This is Captain Park Sujin of the Terran United Fleet, commanding the TSS Whisper's Det. I am speaking on behalf of the 412 vessels behind me. Theric stared at the view screen in shock. The lead human ship was a destroyer, small compared to his dreadnoughts. But there was something painted on its hull, something that made his blood run cold, a symbol of a human hand clasping an alien claw. The Velith are under our protection, Sujin continued. 44 years ago, they saved one of our people. They asked for nothing. They helped simply because help was needed. We do not forget such things, Warlord. Theric found his voice. You are outnumbered, human. I have 800 warships. You have 400. The math is simple. There was a pause. Then Sujin spoke again, and Theric could hear her smile. Count again. Behind the human fleet, more hyperspace ruptures tore open. More ships poured through. Ships from human colonies. Ships from mercenary companies. Ships that looked like they had been pulled out of junkyards and fitted with guns. 600 vessels. 700. 800. The number kept climbing. 1,047 ships now faced the Keth Armada, the largest human fleet ever assembled outside their home system. You have two choices, Sujin said. Withdraw immediately, or discover why the galaxy learned to fear human grudges and human gratitude. Theric's hands were shaking. This was impossible. The humans were on the other side of the galaxy. They had no treaty with the Velith. No strategic interest. No reason to come. Yet here they were, 1,000 ships strong, ready to die for aliens they had never met. You are bluffing, Theric said. You would not sacrifice so many for strangers. We are not strangers, Sujin replied. We are friends. And we keep our promises. On the surface of Velisar, Elder Morath watched the view screen with tears streaming down her face. The human ships hung in space like a wall of steel and fire, standing between her people and destruction. They came, she whispered. They actually came. Beside her, Tilok stared in disbelief. All of them? For us? For kindness, Morath said. For a debt they claimed they never owed. On the bridge of the Iron Fist, Warlord Theric faced the hardest decision of his life. His pride demanded he fight. His honor demanded he crush these arrogant humans. But his military mind was screaming at him to retreat. Even if he won, the cost would be catastrophic. The Keth could not afford to lose half their fleet. And the humans were known throughout the galaxy for their stubborn refusal to surrender. They would fight to the last ship, the last crew member, the last breath. It would not be a battle. It would be a massacre. And Theric was no longer sure which side would be massacred. Your 5 minutes are up, Sujin's voice came again. Make your choice, Warlord. Theric looked at his crew. He saw fear in their eyes. These were warriors, bred for combat. But even warriors knew when they were facing something beyond mere enemies. The humans had come for vengeance, for honor, for a promise made 4 decades ago. They had come for love. And that made them more dangerous than any army in the galaxy. All ships, Theric said quietly. Prepare to engage. If he was going to die, he would die fighting. The Battle of Velisar began with fire and thunder. Keth dreadnoughts unleashed their weapons on the human fleet. Human ships returned fire, their smaller guns blazing against the massive warships. Space itself seemed to burn, as 2 armadas clashed above a dying world. Captain Sujin stood on the bridge of the Whisper's Debt, watching the chaos unfold around her. Her ship shook with every impact. Warning lights flashed across her console. Crew members shouted reports and damage assessments, but she was calm. She was exactly where she needed to be. All ships, she said into her communicator. This is Captain Park. Remember why we're here. Remember who we're fighting for. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity really is. Not warriors. Not conquerors. We are grateful. And we never forget. Across the human fleet, captains heard her words. Kang Minho, his destroyer already burning from Keth fire, pushed his ship forward into the enemy lines. Cho Unji, her cruiser crippled but fighting, held her position against 3 enemy vessels. Admiral Hayon, commanding from the rear, coordinated the battle with cold precision. And throughout the fleet, humans fought. Not for territory, not for resources, not for glory, for a promise, for a kindness, for a debt that was never owed but would always be paid. The battle raged on. The Battle of Velisar lasted 9 hours. 9 hours of fire and blood, of screaming metal and dying ships. 9 hours that would be remembered for centuries, spoken of in whispers across 1,000 worlds. 9 hours that changed the galaxy forever. Captain Kang Minho died in the 3rd hour. His destroyer, the Brave Sun, had been burning since the battle began. Half his crew was dead, his engines were failing. But 3 Velith refugee transports were trapped behind enemy lines, carrying 200,000 civilians who would die if no one saved them. Minho made his choice. He ordered his surviving crew to the escape pods. Then he aimed his crippled ship at the largest Keth dreadnought, blocking the transport's path. His final transmission was heard by every ship in the fleet. "Tell my mother I love her. Tell the Velith I was happy to die for them." The Brave Sun struck the dreadnought at full speed. The explosion destroyed both ships and cleared a path for the transports to escape. 200,000 Velith lived because one human refused to give up. Captain Cho Unji fought until the 6th hour. Her cruiser, Dawn's Light, held a defensive position at the edge of the Velith orbital platforms. Keth ships threw themselves against her again and again, trying to break through to the helpless stations beyond. Unji's crew was exhausted. Her ship was falling apart around her. Every system was failing, but she held the line. For 6 hours, she held the line. When reinforcements finally arrived, Dawn's Light was little more than a burning skeleton. But not a single Keth ship had gotten past her. Not one. Unji collapsed at her command post, unconscious from blood loss. She would survive. Barely. The scars would stay with her forever. She would say later that they were the most beautiful scars she had ever earned. Admiral Yun Hyon commanded from her flagship, the Soul Star, coordinating the battle with cold precision. She had fought in 12 wars, led 100 engagements. But nothing had prepared her for this. The humans fought like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. They did not retreat. They did not surrender. Ships that should have withdrawn pressed forward instead, buying time for others to escape. Captains sacrificed themselves to save strangers. Crews stayed at their posts as their vessels burned around them. It was not military strategy. It was not tactical brilliance. It was something older and deeper. Something that the Keth could not understand and could not defeat. It was humanity at its finest. By the 7th hour, the Keth Armada had lost 300 ships. Human losses were nearly as heavy, but more human vessels kept arriving. Word had spread across the galaxy. Every human with a ship and a gun was racing toward Velisar, desperate to join the fight. Warlord Therak stood on the bridge of the Iron Fist and watched his invasion crumble. He had underestimated the humans. He had thought they were like other species, governed by logic and self-interest. He had been wrong. These creatures did not fight for victory. They fought for something he could not name. Something that made them willing to die by the thousands for people they had never met. "Sir," his second-in-command said quietly, "we cannot win this. We must retreat." Therak's pride screamed at him to refuse. But his fleet was dying. His warriors were terrified, and the humans just kept coming. "All ships," he said, his voice hollow with defeat. "Fall back. Retreat to Keth space." The order went out. Keth vessels began to disengage, turning away from Velisar and fleeing into the darkness of space. Some were destroyed as they ran. Most escaped, but Therak did not escape. Captain Park Sujin had been hunting his command ship for hours. The Whisper's debt was damaged but still fighting, its crew exhausted but determined. When Sujin saw the Iron Fist turn to run, she pushed her ship forward at maximum speed. "All power to weapons," she ordered. "Target their engines." The Whisper's debt fired everything it had. Missiles and energy beams slammed into the Iron Fist, crippling its engines. The massive dreadnought drifted helplessly. Unable to flee, Sujin opened a channel to the enemy ship. "Warlord Therak." This is Captain Park Sujin. You wanted to know why we came. I will tell you. Therek's face appeared on her view screen. He looked old and broken. All his pride burned away. 44 years ago, my father was dying alone in space. Your kind would have left him there. But the Velith saved him. They gave him life, gave him hope, gave him a future. Because of them, I exist. Because of them, I stand here today. She leaned forward, her eyes burning with fierce determination. You wanted to destroy the people who gave me life. You wanted to enslave them and erase their culture. You thought no one would stop you. You were wrong. What will you do? Therek asked. Kill me? Sujin shook her head. No. I will let you live. I will let you go home and tell your people what happened here. Tell them that humanity came for the Velith. Tell them that we crossed half the galaxy to honor a kindness shown to one man. Tell them that if anyone ever threatens our friends again, we will come again. Every ship, every crew, every human with a gun, and the will to use it. She smiled, cold and sharp. Tell them to be kind to their neighbors, Warlord. Because humans have very long memories. She ended the transmission and watched as the Iron Fist limped away into the darkness, carrying its defeated commander back to Keth space. The battle was over. Velisar was saved. In the aftermath, Elder Morath stood in the ruins of the Crystal Palace, surrounded by her advisors and the surviving leaders of her people. The sky above was filled with human ships, victorious but scarred, holding position above the world they had saved. A shuttle descended from the Whisper's deck and landed in the palace courtyard. The door opened, and Captain Park Sujin stepped out. She walked across the rubble-strewn ground until she stood before Elder Morath. The old Velith looked at her with eyes that had seen too much death and too much hope. You came, Morath whispered. You actually came. We promised, Sujin said simply. Your ships are burned. Your people are dead. You sacrificed so much for us. Morath's voice broke. Why? We saved one man, one. And you brought 1,000 ships. Sujin knelt before the elder, just as her father had knelt before her 44 years ago. You saved my father. You asked for nothing. That is not a debt that can ever be repaid. But when you called, we had to answer. It is who we are. Tears flowed down Morath's face. Who are you then? What kind of creatures are you? Sujin reached out and took the elder's trembling hands in her own. We are human. We are grateful. And we never forget. 1 year later, the Terran Velith alliance was signed in the rebuilt Crystal Palace. It was not a treaty of politics or strategy. It was a declaration of family. Two species, bound not by need but by choice. A statue was built in the center of the palace courtyard. It showed a human hand clasping a Velith claw, reaching toward each other across the void of space. Below it, words were carved in both languages. They asked for nothing. We gave everything. This is the Terran way. The statue became a pilgrimage site. Species from across the galaxy came to see it, to touch it, to remember what had happened at Velisar. They came to understand a truth that would reshape interstellar politics for generations. Humans were not warriors. They were not conquerors. They were something far more dangerous. They were grateful. And across the stars, in the dark spaces between worlds, a simple lesson spread from species to species, empire to empire. Be kind to a human. Help them when they are alone and afraid. Ask for nothing in return, because someday, somehow, when you need them most, they will remember, and they will come, every single one of them.